Hi, folks. This is Yusuf Rangwala. I am a principal specialist as part of the Global Black Belt Team Asia. I help out customers in transforming their application estate and making new applications faster, easier, better. Today, in this session, we would be looking at how you can build future ready applications with minimal effort and applications that are future proof. Okay, and that's where the title is Do More with Less. You will be going through some new technologies as low code, no code, and how we can work together using pro code and low code together in what is called as fusion development. With me, I also have Jaideep. Jaideep, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Yusuf. Hi, folks. Jaideep John, Principal Solution Specialist for the Global Black Belt team at Microsoft. Citizen developer by heart and strong proponent of everyone can code or build applications for that matter.
Yeah, in today's session, Jaideep will be playing a typical fusion, a business developer. And that essentially means he always keeps on coming to me for requirements with new changes, with new applications, and then he wants all of them like yesterday. He's always pressed for time and breathing down my neck.
Yep, and I always go back to Yusuf, who's my pro developer friend and who helps me to build mission critical parts of the citizen applications what we are building. Yusuf has a lot of work. He has a huge inventory of apps to develop, which is one of the reasons why we want to pivot the story today on what makes low code tick. So, if you quickly take a look at the world of digital space, business is moving at a much faster pace than it was, and the best use of custom applications to communicate and interact between customers, employees, and partners. That's what's driving companies much more than ever. Over the past year, we have seen organizations around the world accelerating innovation by building amazing customer experience. Now, Microsoft is pleased to play a part in supporting our partners and customers around the world in making digital and application innovation possible. But in this journey, what I want to draw your attention is there's a report from IDC, which is not too far away in 2019. Mind you, this is before pandemic and digital transformation started to explode. In 2019, IDC predicted that there are 500 million new applications that is going to be built in the next 5 years. So that's from 2019 to 2024. And I'm sure this number could have changed in the pandemic era. Now, this is more than all the applications that got built in the last 40 years, right? Now, this is a huge inventory, right? Huge set of apps. Now, the challenges that we find across enterprises is the first one, as we all know, is the tech talent limitation, right? While the application demand is increasing day by day, the world faces a shortage of talent. 86% of the organizations that we surveyed, they struggle to find technical talent, and the demand for mobile applications is growing at a faster rate than what IT could support. The other challenge is the ground up software development takes a lot of time, right? So building up applications from scratch is time consuming. There are multiple considerations to be looked at. Although you have full control over how the software functions, there are high monetary costs associated with building and maintaining an application homegrown. The other challenge is a surging digital demand. Right? The demand for technology or digital technology has surged over the past few years, and the need for tech-savvy solutions that exist across sector and industries, they're making it far more relevant. And it is becoming hard for business to resolve these issues with in-house solutions for a myriad set of problems. And lastly, the most important part, security and compliance, right? Building software in-house brings a host of security and compliance considerations and investments to ensure that these applications run seamlessly, face no regulatory problems or breach of data, hacks and threats, and so on and so forth. So all this put together is what Gartner made a prediction recently that close to 70% of the new applications to be built will be built on low-code technologies. Yusuf, how do you look at that? As a pro developer who's been working on the cutting edge of mission critical applications, how do you look at this new wave of requirement coming across?
Thanks, Advi. So what we have seen, and this is where Microsoft introduces a very interesting take on it. We do have a lot of legacy applications that will continuously be modernized. We would have a slew of new applications which would require me or pro code developers to build a lot of code which is more functional code. But then if I want to really meet the demands of the business, I need to scale through what we call it as fusion teams. And when these fusion teams come together and they start building these applications with a mix of low code and no code technologies as well as pro code behind the scenes, we see a great reduction in app development costs. We also have seen organizations achieving 4 to 5 times more growth as well as better innovation. All of this is generally standardized with a uniform DevOps process that can be applied to both the pro code as well as the no code and low code solutions. In fact, if you look at how these fusion teams kind of collaborate together, I'll talk about three different personas. The first one is the code first developers, people like me who are making applications. While we've been making applications previously as well, by using DevOps, we are able to do these things much faster and focus only on our code. But then we also get support from what we call it as makers or the citizen developers. These makers understand how the screen is supposed to look like, how what is it that they want to view, and by using no code technology like Power Apps, Power BI, they can actually go ahead and start making those changes themselves without even coming to us. And then whenever they need the necessary data, they simply have to go ahead and give those requirements to us. We will create the necessary APIs and give it to them, and that's how we can work together. In fact, with the IT professionals, we can collaborate and they can make sure that that seamless DevOps solution is covering the makers, the code first developers, so that from their perspective, the governance and making sure that from a security perspective, everything's good is seamless, whether we build applications that are pro code or we build applications which are no code driven. So this is how like the entire team kind of comes together. Uh, Now, Jaideep, what do you think the Power Platform gives you?
Yusuf, I think the fusion development along with Power Platform gives me an immense extensibility. Earlier, as a citizen developer, there were limited functionality I could do in a standalone environment. With Power Apps, I can build wireframes, screens, and build applications. With Power Automate, I can integrate with likes of SAP, CRM, which helps to create applications that connect to enterprise backend systems and create end-to-end workflows. With Power Virtual Agents, I can create virtual agents and chatbots. All of this is available out of the box, and top it all with Power BI for excellent dashboard and reporting.
And then, whatever Jaideep cannot build with Power Apps, he just comes to me and says, "Hey, how do I go ahead and solve this problem?" And I use the power of Azure. And whether it has to be building analysis services, whether I want to expose an API, whether I want to do some complex processing in Azure functions, I can actually go ahead and spin up a container environment and then expose an API. This API will be exposed via API management. And then you can use the power of API management to create what is called as custom connectors. These connectors are available to Jaideep on the Power Platform in a very seamless manner where he can simply drag drop that connectors and all the necessary fields or all the parameters are available for him to consume in his Power Apps. Isn't that cool? So which essentially means that I can now go ahead and play with the entire power of Azure, go ahead and talk to all of the databases, whatever I want to do, and just expose them as connectors to Jaideep so that Jaideep can start consuming them in his applications. If let's say he doesn't have any processing and he just wants to access database, I can still go ahead and expose my database via something called as Dataverse, and through that Dataverse, Jaideep will be able to access that data seamlessly. You do not need to kind of be an expert on Azure services to consume Dataverse. Now this essentially means that I get to work on my code and then Jaideep gets to work on his Power Apps and we are building these solutions together. In fact, if you look at the power, the entire end-to-end scenario, on the left side, the IT professional can go ahead and introduce the right policies so that it can determine which APIs or which connectors Jaideep has access to, and what kind of applications he can build, what is the kind of data that he can see and consume in his applications. When when he's created those application, the consumers of the application, which could be internal users, which could be external users, can be tied to my Azure AD based authentication, and hence I'm ensuring that there is no intoward access to these applications. I can also ensure that I set up the right business units, environments, teams, and the right hierarchy, so that the necessary right processing access privileges are passed on. In fact, with Dataverse, I can also provide field level security to ensure which fields are available to what kind of users. Now, like I said, right, the best part about Power Apps is how you can expand that to other functionality. For example, I can always go ahead and connect Power Apps to Teams or other Office apps, so that you don't need a Power App screen. You can actually go ahead and interact via your Teams interface. We also have something called as AI Builder that can help you build more intelligent applications. And with Power Automate, you can go ahead and connect, what is called as data connectors, which actually link to a lot of third-party services, whether it is SAP, whether it is something like CRM solutions, or the standard email and Dropbox and those kind of file storage solutions as well. So you have that endless possibility that you can do. Needless to say, we already talked about the power of Azure and how you can extend that, use that to extend Power Apps. So, uh, Jaideep, now if you, let's say you have an application which is already, it's a legacy app, and now you want to start creating a new interface for that. Okay, you simply come to me and tell me, hey, this is my application, this is the code. Uh, what do you do about it? I will go ahead and create an API for it. I'll expose that API through API management, and then I'll publish that as a custom connector on the Power Platform. Now, when you are developing, I can decide which environment, which section it needs to be passed on to, and then you can go ahead and use this custom connector inside of your Power App solution.
Absolutely.
Jaideep, what do you think this? What are the power now? What else can you build with this?
I think this is great, Yusuf. That kind of creates like I was saying, a limitless possibility for us to bring in the low code scenarios with pro code and fusion, as we call it. Now, there are a host of scenarios that we see, broadly again put into three different buckets. The first we see is more about the web and mobile front ends. These are rapidly creating web and mobile front ends using drag and drop visual designers. That's a low hanging fruit that we see across a lot of business to enterprise or business to business scenarios. I would need to build an employee self service application. I would need to build an application for my employees to do leave approval, self service. I would need to build an app for cab bookings, gate passes for vendors, B2B tracking between my partners and upstream, things of that sort. The second part is more about the line of business extension applications. So these are basically to streamline a business process. For example, I need to assign and track requests coming through to completion, giving business teams the visibility and control that they need to deliver better service more efficiently. It could be as simple as an inwards good entry, wherein someone has to physically verify the inward goods and then checks if it meets the right requirements, and that's in line with what the order has been placed, things of that sort. And the last bucket is about custom business processes, right? These are external facing business processes. Example, create a survey to gather insight from customers. To a good extent, this is more about a white space because I don't have an application that space and I would need to create that, right? So these are broadly the examples that we got from a compartmentalization standpoint across the customers we work with. I'll also do one thing. I'll take you through one of the customers, which is actually Coca-Cola, and what we did for Coca-Cola in a similar context, right? So this was basically Coca-Cola was doing a community-driven business model, which results in about 327,000 cases or $5 million of revenue across various events. In the past, it was hyper manual. So it's basically there are charity events that Coca-Cola is part of, so they would need to kind of be part of that community charity events, and there are certain application that needs to be managed for that, basically to get information about the friends and family, interact with the brand, all of that. Now, what they did was with Power App, it enabled them to create a modern and efficient way of tracking and provisioning the data from the events that they're part of, all the way to the ERP and the billing system and payment processing. So this is a seamless solution that we built on Power Apps with Azure, and it goes and commits into their backend systems, which is SAP and the payment gateways for that matter, right? So that sounds like a great example. A lot of times, Yusuf, we get asked on security, right? So how do you deal with that aspect? Because the moment low code, no code based applications now become mainstream, and then there are enterprises outside of the enterprise also comes into the picture, security becomes a very pertinent question. Would love
Yes.
to take your thoughts on that.
In fact, the biggest worry that most organizations have with something like a no code or low code platform is the idea of shadow IT, right? What if the business goes ahead and starts building these applications without the IT even knowing about it? And what if they miss out on any of the security controls and compliances? And hence, here is where we go ahead and see that with Fusion development, what we essentially see is that even when you are building these Power Apps uh, solutions, we give you what is called as a Power Apps environment. And through Azure AD, you can actually control who gets access to which kind of environment, what is the kind of privileges that you have, what is the kind of data, and what is the kind of APIs which are exposed onto it. So, for example, if you want your SAP systems only to be exposed to a certain segment of your developers or citizen developers, you can actually do that. If your HR doesn't need access to your SAP, you have two different environments for those ones. So you can go ahead and start putting those things across. The second part is we have something called it's a toolkit available where you can set up policies in terms of what kind of guardrails you can put across when you are governing those environments. And this means when you're creating applications, like for example, if you are going to reach to a database, the connection for it has to come from a key vault. So you can always go ahead and put those necessary policies and ensure that I'm using Azure Key Vault to access the necessary connection details and only using Key Vault to access the database. And when you do this, you are still building applications much more faster, but the underlying framework has been already kind of built for you. Okay, the same thing. And the third part is when you are actually creating uh, the applications, you want to make it repeatable. With our ALM lifecycle management for Power Apps, we have tools available where you can go ahead and kind of just export put these as part of pipelines so that you can kind of have a repeatable process which can be run again and again with whatever changes you want. So what this means is that even though you're a citizen developer and you've done all sorts of trials and errors, if this has to go to production, you can streamline through a DevOps process where you check in your app and then eventually it goes to production in the nose of IT, with IT kind of seeing that everything is in place before it approves the final production deployment. So with
Wonderful.
this, it actually comes up really helpful. In fact, Jadip, you know about Rabobank, right?
Oh yeah, it is. It exactly resonates with what you just said because second largest bank in Netherlands, and they adopted Power Platform to streamline the internal process as part of a broad digitization strategy. And the key challenge was to meet the stringent security and regulatory requirement. So what we did for Rabobank was to create a center of excellence which incorporates, just like what you said, the the set of environments, the policies, the controls aligned to different users, even a set of automated processes for setting up environments on demand, so that we know that the entire DevOps process is also set up for building mission critical applications, right? So this is
Awesome.
a great example for us to take the security and governance that we would normally take for granted in a lot of mission critical applications to low code based Fusion applications as well. Now, what I would also love to see, Yusuf, is understand from you on how do you see the fusion teams being set up across organizations, because that's something we hear a lot. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, and this is where, Microsoft is the pioneer in creating these fusion teams. We've internally also done that. Okay, in fact, what we see is that uh, there is 84% of these successful organizations uh, would have fusion teams. Okay, uh, the second part is when you're creating fusion teams, it doesn't need to be the IT person leading it. We've seen 43% of those successful organizations have fusion team leaders which are not reporting into IT. They could be the business heads, they could be the data scientists or whatever you call it, right? And and you know this I mean, there's a huge scarcity of developers, and that essentially means you need to make sure that you adopt the fusion team model very quickly. So what if you see this model, right? You have the domain experts, the makers, the business owners, whatever you call it in your organization. Your job is to identify the business requirements and maybe kind of create quick wireframes, think about how your data flows are going to be, and start kind of defining or designing a prototype. Now the best part is you can actually build this end to end in Power Apps. If let's say you don't have the data, you can use Dataverse, create the necessary data for yourself as well. You don't even need to go to the pro code developer. But then when you want certain aspect of processing that happens, you start talking to the developer, giving him the requirements. The developer will actually go ahead and create the necessary functionality. Like I said, expose them as APIs and connectors to you, so that your same screen that you have before is now, instead of accessing the Dataverse data, can actually go ahead and now start connecting to the connector. And that's how you can start kind of integrating both of these solutions together. Now, because you want DevOps to play and you want all of this secure, the developer will not directly expose his code. What he will do is, once he's built the APIs, he will go ahead and kind of check it into his source control, and these APIs will be published by the IT pro and eventually go to the right environments in Power Apps, so that those APIs are exposed in the right manner. And once you have that, the maker can now go ahead and create the final app and publish this app to other users on the Power Apps part. Once this is there and is there, Power App platform actually gives you a lot of telemetry: who's using the app, what is the kind of access that is there, what happens. So the IT pro is continuously monitoring this as well, just to see how the app usage is, what are the best practices, and then he starts setting up the right ALM processes to see how I can continuously republish these apps as more and more changes are being made into it. This, in a nutshell, gives you this end to end flow of how fusion teams work in practice. Okay. Now,
Wonderful.
we also have a lot of developer tools available across all boards, right? So for example, we have something called as Power App Studio, which helps the makers and domain experts create Power Apps very quickly. We also have Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, and a lot of our Azure services, which can help you design the backend APIs. And then when you want to publish it, you can publish it via DevOps as well as the Power App Studio. So you can do both of them. We have got integration with GitHub, so that you can actually use GitHub Actions to deploy on the Power Platform. And I already mentioned about the ALM accelerator, right, which can help you kind of manage your application lifecycle management. So where do we go from here? We do have a lot of programs where we can run workshops with you, which is called as App in a Day. We can work with you and help you build app on the Power Platform in just a single day. Okay, we do have some demos available in this deck that you can potentially look at in terms of how you can kind of build applications using the Power Platform. And then there is a learning module on MS Learn, where we kind of help you understand what is fusion development and how you can use that to transform your business applications and accelerate your application innovation journey. The Power Apps Dev Conference is just around the corner. You can use that to access a great amount of webinar and conference content there. With this, we have come to the close of this session. Thank you very much. I hope this session was helpful. Jaideep, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I hope the session was clearly able to articulate the value of bringing in the pro developer and the citizen developer to build the power of fusion development, which actually opens up endless possibilities for organizations to meet that $500 million chasm that we are talking about. Thanks, folks. Thanks for taking time and being with us for this session. Have a great day.
Thanks. You have a great day.